Let's play a quick game. Spot the steady plate. Two plates, same carbs. One spikes fast, the other stays calm for hours. The difference? A small add-on that quietly flattens the curve. Here's the truth. After 60, it's not your willpower, your metabolism, muscle, and insulin sensitivity shift, so steady numbers get harder. But the fix isn't cutting carbs, it's pairing them smarter. Today, 5 simple doctor-recommended foods that slow the surge, boost fullness, and steady energy so you can enjoy bread, rice, and pasta without the roller coaster. So let's start with one that surprises almost everyone. But why does purple rice behave so differently from white rice? The answer sits in the grain itself. Black rice is a true whole grain with its bran and germ intact, and that dark hue signals polyphenols, especially anthocyanins. Those compounds, along with higher fiber, create a slower release of starch and a steadier post-meal pattern than refined white rice. Many people over 60 have given up rice because they expect a spike every time. That sense of restriction is real. But black rice behaves differently, and the difference shows up on your meter. Think of 2 lunches that look almost the same. 1 cup of white rice with a stir-fry and 1 cup of black rice with that same stir-fry. The white bowl tends to rush, while the purple bowl climbs more gradually thanks to fiber and those blueberry-like pigments known as anthocyanins. Anthocyanins do more than color the grain. Early studies suggest they can slow carbohydrate breakdown and influence the enzymes that process starch. In fact, research shows anthocyanins can inhibit carbohydrases and lipases and reduce starch digestibility, mechanisms that help explain lower post-meal glucose and potential improvements in lipid profiles, which supports heart health as we age. At the same time, the intact whole grain structure delays gastric emptying, so glucose enters the bloodstream at a measured pace. Think of the bran on black rice like a brake pad. With white rice, the brake has been stripped away, so the starch hits your system quickly. With black rice, the bran layer and fiber apply friction, slowing the release. That's why the same stir-fry can feel entirely different depending on the base you choose. Concrete numbers help. In controlled comparisons, black rice has shown about a 27-point mean glycemic index reduction versus white bread, and in direct tests with children managing type 1 diabetes, boiled black rice kept average peaks below 180 milligrams per deciliter, a range where white rice often overshoots. The grain's structure plus its polyphenols work together to shift the curve. Cooking method matters too. Boiled black rice tends to give a gentler response than white rice, and when prepared as risotto, black rice has shown higher polyphenols and antioxidants than when simply boiled. In side-by-side tests using the same risotto method, black rice produced a lower mean peak than white rice, highlighting how preparation can amplify benefits. So, can black rice bring rice back to your plate without the usual spike? For many, yes. Start with about 1/2 to 3/4 cup cooked per meal. Pair it with protein and vegetables to steady the response further, or start by mixing it 50-50 with brown rice to ease into the texture. At the store, look for forbidden rice or black japonica. Rinse well to remove extra starch and cook with a bit more water than white rice since it absorbs more. If you use insulin or a sulfonylurea, keep portions consistent and work with your clinician on dose timing. You've set the base. Now add the cool, creamy partner with protein and live cultures to steady your numbers even more. The plain version actually outperforms those fancy fortified cups for blood sugar control. Why? It starts with 2 big wins: more protein and fermentation. That thicker texture means more protein per spoon, which slows how fast food leaves your stomach and helps prevent a sharp glucose jump. The live cultures from fermentation may also add a small nudge by supporting gut health, which ties into insulin response and appetite control. Now, here's why many people miss the benefit. Sweetened cups look healthy on the front label, but the added sugar can undo the steadying effect. Then comes the shelf full of claims: probiotic, extra protein, vitamin D, which makes choosing harder. You don't need bells and whistles to see a difference. Plain Greek yogurt is enough to settle that morning curve. Take a simple breakfast you already know, toast with jam. Eat it as is, and it burns fast. Add a generous dollop of plain Greek yogurt on the side, and the curve shifts. The protein and the thicker body slow the rate at which that jammy sugar shows up in your blood. You feel fuller longer, and the craving for a second slice eases. Studies back the pattern. Large analyses show fermented dairy stands out. Daily yogurt intake is linked with an 18% lower risk of type 2 diabetes, and about 80 to 125 grams per day is associated with a 14% lower risk compared with no yogurt. Some controlled trials using probiotic yogurts report better fasting glucose or small drops in HbA1c, though not every study agrees. The current view is that probiotics may help improve insulin sensitivity and reduce low-grade inflammation, but this mechanism still needs stronger confirmation in clinical trials. Still, the overall signal points in the same direction. Yogurt, especially higher protein fermented types, pairs well with steady numbers. Think of thick Greek yogurt as a protein anchor for your carbs. It weighs the meal down just enough to slow absorption without making breakfast heavy. Beyond protein, calcium, and vitamin D support insulin pathways in the body. Probiotic strains may also reduce low-grade inflammation and help the gut barrier work better, both useful as we age. So which yogurt wins for steady mornings after 60? Plain Greek yogurt, low-fat or 2%, takes the lead. You get the protein and the fermentation without the sugar rush. Add cinnamon for sweetness without glucose, or stir in chia for extra fiber. A few berries add color and polyphenols while keeping sugars modest. Aim for about 3/4 to 1 cup per day. When you shop, scan the label for 15 to 20 grams of protein and less than 8 grams of total sugar per serving. Keep an eye on sodium in flavored or ultra-high protein cups. If you take thyroid medication or certain osteoporosis drugs, leave a 2-hour gap because calcium can interfere with absorption. Now, let's talk about the small, crunchy upgrade that supports insulin and makes carb-heavy meals land softer. Add a handful of seeds to a carb-heavy lunch or dinner and watch the glucose curve dip. Why does this small crunch have such a big effect? Pumpkin seeds bring a trio that matters after 60: fiber, healthy fats, and magnesium. Fiber and fats slow how fast carbs leave your stomach. Magnesium supports insulin action and glucose transport inside your cells, so the same meal lands softer. Salty snacks often get a red light, so many people skip anything crunchy. That makes sense when most options come coated in salt or sugar. But pumpkin seeds play a different game. They add texture without the spike, and you can control the sodium when you start with raw or lightly salted seeds. Take a simple lunch you might already eat: tomato soup and a slice of bread. On its own, that combo can run hot on your meter. Now add 1/4 to 1/2 cup of pumpkin seeds on the soup and over the bread. You chew longer, you feel satisfied sooner, and digestion slows. That small shift in pace changes how quickly starch turns into glucose. Research backs this effect. In a randomized crossover trial with adults, adding about 65 grams of pumpkin seeds to high-carb mixed meals lowered the overall post-meal glucose response. The incremental area under the curve dropped by roughly 35% compared to the same meal without seeds. Even when single time points didn't look different, the total load over 2 hours was lower, which is exactly what you want to protect energy and focus in the afternoon. Think of seeds as speed bumps for starch. The fiber and fats force a slower drive-through, so enzymes meet the carbs in stages. Magnesium adds another layer. Higher magnesium intake links with better insulin sensitivity over time, and pumpkin seeds are a good source, making them a smart way to fill a common gap without a supplement. So how much do you need to notice a change without adding too many calories? For most adults, start with about 1/4 cup per day. If you're swapping them in for other fats, like croutons, cheese, or heavy dressings, you can go up to 1/2 cup. Use them raw or lightly toasted. Sprinkle on salads, fold into soups, stir into plain yogurt or oatmeal, or top grain bowls for steady crunch. Check sodium on the label, especially on roasted and salted bags. Store seeds in a cool pantry or the fridge to protect the oils from going rancid. If you take anticoagulants or follow a tight calorie plan, check in with your clinician before increasing portions. Crunch covered. Ready for a bigger drop with your favorite carbs? Meet the creamy bean that tames rice, tacos, and pasta all in one scoop. Lima Beans bring three tools that matter for steady numbers: fiber, resistant starch, and plant protein. Fiber slows how fast food leaves your stomach. Resistant starch digests slowly, lowering the glycemic hit. Protein adds fullness so you eat less and snack later, which helps the daily pattern after 60. You may hear that beans are too many carbs or worry they cause gas. Both concerns are common, and not all beans feel the same in every meal. The key is how their starch behaves. Lima beans fall on the low glycemic side and carry a meaningful load of resistant starch. That means you get carbohydrate energy without the rush. Start slow and your gut adapts. Most people gain comfort and the steadying effect. Take a rice bowl two ways. Rice alone often climbs fast. Rice plus a cup of lima beans acts more like a slow-release capsule. The starch from the rice meets fiber, protein, and resistant starch from the beans, and your enzymes work in stages rather than all at once. You feel satisfied and your meter tends to reflect a lower, smoother rise. Clinical trials have tested this style of eating. In a randomized trial comparing a low glycemic index diet that emphasized about 1 cup of legumes daily to a high wheat fiber diet, the legume-focused plan reduced HbA1c by about 0.5% and lowered systolic blood pressure by roughly 4.5 millimeters of mercury. That dual benefit, better glucose and softer blood pressure, supports day-to-day steadiness and heart health. Legumes in general sit low on the glycemic index and appear in national diabetes guidelines because their slowly digested starch, fiber, and plant protein work together. Here's the twist that helps beyond a single meal. The second meal effect comes from resistant starch-feeding gut bacteria. They produce short-chain fatty acids that support insulin sensitivity later in the day. Eat lima beans at lunch, and dinner may track a gentler curve as well. That carryover is a quiet win that adds up across the week. Bean type can change the spike in mixed meals. Studies show bean and rice plates reduce the post-meal response compared with rice alone, with pinto and black beans often highlighted. Lima beans follow the same resistant starch logic, so they fit neatly when you want a mild flavor and creamy texture. They hold shape in soups and mash smoothly on toast. How do you add them without the bloat or extra sodium? Start with 1/2 cup cooked daily for a week or two, then aim for about 1 cup. Rinse canned beans well and pick low sodium or no salt added. Simmer with bay leaf or cumin to aid digestion. Pair with rice, blend into soups, or spread on whole grain toast with olive oil and herbs. If you use insulin or sulfonylureas, track closely and adjust doses with your clinician. If you follow a potassium-restricted plan, discuss portions in advance. Keep that steady rhythm going with a dinner protein that brings fermentation and easy digestion to the table, a food that's firm, nutty, and quietly powerful when it comes to blood sugar. A protein that's already been pre-digested by friendly microbes. Can fermentation make dinner easier on your blood sugar? Tempeh makes a strong case. It starts as whole soybeans bound into a firm cake, then fermentation reshapes the nutrition. You get dense protein, some fiber, and isoflavones informs your body absorbs more easily. That combination steadies the meal and supports a calmer post-meal rise. Soy myths and sodium worries can get in the way. You might hear that all soy is heavily processed or that it's too salty. Plain tempeh is simple and naturally low in sodium. What pushes salt up are pre-marinated products. Another concern is whether all fermented foods help equally. They don't. Tempeh's fermentation breaks down proteins and reduces anti-nutrients, which changes how your body handles the same food. Think about pasta night two ways. Plate 1 is just noodles and sauce, fast fuel that tends to jump. Plate 2 adds sautéed tempeh with peppers, mushrooms, and a drizzle of olive oil. The fermented protein slows the starch rush, and the extra chew helps you pace the meal. You end up with a steadier curve and feel full without a heavy plate. Fermentation does more under the surface. It converts isoflavones into their aglycone forms, genistein and didzine, which the body takes up readily. It also creates small peptides from soy protein. Early human data link these changes with better glycemic markers and lower triglycerides, and lab and animal models point to improved insulin signaling and less inflammation. Fermented soy foods also show antioxidant activity and may dampen low-grade inflammation, adding another layer of support for metabolic health as we age. Think of tempeh as a trainer for insulin pathways. Because the proteins are partly broken down, your body spends less effort digesting while getting high-quality amino acids. Tempeh also brings iron and B vitamins plus prebiotic fiber that feeds gut microbes. Studies note shifts toward beneficial bacteria such as Bifidobacterium, Lactobacillus, and Akkermansia, with more short-chain fatty acids that support insulin sensitivity. These microbiome changes add to the steadying effect you feel after a meal. So how much tempeh helps without pushing sodium or changing flavors too much? Keep it simple. Start with 3 to 4 ounces cooked, 2 to 4 times per week. Buy plain tempeh, marinate with low-sodium soy sauce, ginger, and garlic, then pan-sear until browned. Add to pasta, tuck into tacos, or layer over salads and grain bowls. Check labels on pre-marinated packs for hidden sodium. If you take thyroid medication, leave a 3 to 4 hour gap from soy. If you use hormone therapy, ask your clinician about isoflavones and your plan. You've just built the foundation. 5 foods that steady your blood sugar, but food's only half the story. To make those nutrients go farther, you need stronger blood flow. In the next video, you'll learn 3 reflex points that boost circulation, energy, and focus, so meals land softer and you feel stronger. Tap the video on screen to keep today's wins going. It takes less than 5 minutes a day.